Marcus Chen had been alone on research station Kepler 442b for 3 months when his life changed forever. The mining station orbited a dead world in the outer rim, so far from civilization that supply ships only came twice a year. He was supposed to have a crew of 12, but budget cuts had left him as the sole operator of the massive automated mining complex. The work was simple enough. Monitor the extraction robots, maintain the equipment, and file daily reports that nobody back on Earth seemed to read anymore. The pay was excellent, but the isolation was slowly driving him insane. He talked to himself constantly, held conversations with the station's AI, and even named the mining robots after old friends from college. That Tuesday started like any other. Marcus woke up in his small quarters, grabbed a cup of synthetic coffee from the dispenser, and walked to the main control room. The massive windows showed the barren landscape of Kepler 442b below, its red soil stretching endlessly under the pale light of its distant star. The mining robots worked tirelessly, their mechanical arms digging deep into the planet's crust, searching for rare earth metals that would power humanity's expanding fleet. Marcus settled into his chair and began his morning routine. Check the overnight reports, review the robot status logs, and send his daily update to Earth Command. Everything was running smoothly. Too smoothly, perhaps. He had grown suspicious of perfect days over the past few weeks. They usually meant something was about to go very wrong. He was reviewing the extraction yields when the proximity alarms began blaring. Marcus jumped up, his coffee mug clattering to the floor. The warning lights bathed the control room in angry red as the station's AI announced in its calm, feminine voice, "Unidentified vessel approaching. Distance, 50,000 kilometers and closing." Marcus rushed to the sensor station, his fingers flying over the controls. The display showed a ship unlike anything in the human fleet databases. It was sleek and organic-looking, with smooth curves that seemed to flow like water. No sharp edges, no visible weapons ports, no identifying markings. Just a beautiful alien craft that moved through space with impossible grace. Computer, scan the vessel. What's its origin? Unknown design. No match in any database. Composition appears to be a metallic substance not found in our periodic table. Marcus felt his heart racing. First contact protocols flooded his mind, but he was just a mining engineer, not a diplomat. He had no idea what to do when aliens showed up at his doorstep. The communications manual said to contact Earth Command immediately, but that would take hours due to the distance. By then, it might be too late. The alien ship continued its approach, moving in a straight line toward the station. No evasive maneuvers, no threatening gestures, just a steady, purposeful advance. Marcus watched the distance counter tick down, 40,000 kilometers, 30,000, 20,000. Computer, open a communication channel on all frequencies. Channel open. Marcus cleared his throat, suddenly, aware of how ridiculous this moment was. Here he was, a lonely mining engineer about to make humanity's first contact with an alien species. Unknown vessel, this is Research Station Kepler 442b. I am Marcus Chen, the station operator. Please identify yourself and state your intentions. Static filled the speakers. Marcus tried again, this time in the 6 most common Earth languages he knew. Still nothing. The ship continued its approach, now close enough that he could see details on its hull. There were patterns etched into the surface, flowing designs that reminded him of Celtic knots or perhaps circuit boards. The ship pulsed with a soft, blue light that seemed to come from within the metal itself. 10,000 kilometers. 5,000. 1,000. The ship was now close enough to dock with the station, and Marcus could see an airlock beginning to extend from its side. His hands shook as he watched the alien vessel connect to his station with mechanical precision. Computer, seal all internal bulkheads. Lock down the station. Lockdown initiated. All sections secured. But, even as he said it, Marcus knew it was pointless. If these aliens wanted to get inside, a few locked doors wouldn't stop them. He grabbed the emergency blaster from the weapons locker, even though he'd never fired it outside of the mandatory training simulations. The weapon felt heavy and unfamiliar in his hands. The station shuddered slightly as the alien ship completed its docking procedure. Marcus watched the external cameras, waiting for something to emerge from the mysterious vessel.
Minutes passed. Nothing happened.
The corridor leading to the docking bay remained empty, the lights casting long shadows on the metal walls. Marcus made a decision that would change everything. Instead of waiting in the control room like a scared rabbit, he would meet these visitors halfway. If humanity was about to make first contact, he wanted to represent his species with courage, not cowardice. He holstered his weapon and walked through the station's corridors, his footsteps echoing in the silence. The docking bay doors stood before him, sealed and secure. According to the computer, the alien ship had established a perfect atmospheric seal. Whatever these creatures were, they understood human technology well enough to dock safely with his station. That was either reassuring or terrifying, depending on how you looked at it. Marcus placed his hand on the door controls and paused. Once he opened these doors, there would be no going back.
Humanity would no longer be alone in the universe.
He took a deep breath and pressed the button. The doors slid open with a soft hiss, revealing a corridor that connected to the alien ship. The walls were the same flowing, organic metal as the ship's hull, and they pulsed with that same blue light.
The air smelled different too, like ozone after a thunderstorm mixed with something floral he couldn't identify.
Marcus stepped into the corridor, his boots making soft sounds on the strange floor. The material beneath his feet felt solid but somehow alive, as if it were responding to his presence. The blue light grew brighter as he walked deeper into the ship, and he began to hear something that sounded almost like music. Soft, harmonious tones that seemed to come from the walls themselves. The corridor opened into a large chamber filled with impossible architecture. The walls curved and twisted in ways that hurt to look at, creating spaces that seemed larger on the inside than the outside. Strange devices hummed quietly in alcoves, their purposes completely mysterious. But what caught Marcus's attention was the figure standing in the center of the room. She was humanoid but clearly not human. Tall and elegant, with skin that shimmered like starlight and hair that moved as if it were underwater. Her clothing seemed to be made of the same organic material as the ship, flowing and shifting around her body like liquid metal. But it was her eyes that truly captivated him. They were large and dark, filled with an intelligence that seemed ancient and vast. She looked at Marcus for a long moment, her head tilted slightly to one side. Then, she smiled, and, when she spoke, her voice was like music made audible.
"Hello, Marcus Chen. I am Zara of the Confluence. We have been watching your species for some time."
Marcus stared at her, his mind struggling to process what was happening.
She knew his name.
She spoke perfect English. And she was beautiful in a way that made his heart race and his thoughts scatter.
You're aliens," he managed to say, immediately feeling foolish for stating the obvious. Zara's smile widened. "We are what you might call interdimensional travelers.
We exist in spaces between spaces, in the gaps where reality bends. Your species has recently begun to interest us because you are approaching a critical point in your development."
Critical point? The moment when a species must choose between expansion and extinction.
Between cooperation and conquest.
Between wisdom and destruction.
She moved closer to Marcus, her steps silent on the impossible floor.
Humanity stands at a crossroads, Marcus Chen.
And the path you choose will determine not just your future, but the future of many other species as well. Marcus felt overwhelmed by the implications of her words.
Why are you telling me this? I'm nobody important. I'm just a mining engineer stuck on a dead rock in the middle of nowhere.
Zara reached out and touched his cheek with one slender finger. Her skin was warm and seemed to tingle with energy. That is precisely why you are important, Marcus Chen. You are not a politician or a military leader or a corporate executive. You are what your species truly is at its core. Curious, brave, and willing to face the unknown. The touch of her finger sent strange sensations through Marcus's body. He felt more alert, more alive than he had in months. The loneliness that had been eating at him seemed to fade away, replaced by a sense of connection he had never experienced before. "What do you want from me?" he asked. "I want to show you something," Zara replied. "Something that will help you understand what humanity must become if it is to survive the challenges ahead." She turned and walked toward what appeared to be a blank wall. As she approached, the wall began to shimmer and change, revealing a doorway that led to another impossible space. Marcus followed her, unable to resist the pull of her presence. The new chamber was filled with what looked like windows, but Marcus quickly realized they were viewing portals showing different scenes from across the galaxy. He saw worlds he had never imagined, species so alien that his mind could barely process their forms, and civilizations that span entire star systems.
This is the confluence, Zara explained.
A gathering of species that have learned to work together, to share knowledge and resources, to explore the universe not as conquerors but as partners. Marcus watched in awe as the portals showed scenes of cooperation and wonder. Creatures of living crystal sharing energy with beings made of pure thought. Aquatic species working alongside gaseous entities to terraform dead worlds. Technologies that seemed like magic, accomplishing feats that humanity could only dream of. It's incredible, Marcus whispered. But, how is any of this possible? When species learn to set aside their differences and work together, they can accomplish anything, Zara said.
But, the path to the confluence is not easy. Many species destroy themselves before they learn this lesson.
Many choose conquest over cooperation, fear over trust. She turned to face Marcus, her dark eyes reflecting the light from the portals. Your species is approaching this choice point now. Your technology has advanced to the point where you could join us, but your social development lags behind. You still think in terms of nations and corporations, competition and scarcity. Marcus felt a weight settling on his shoulders.
So what happens if we make the wrong choice? Zara's expression grew sad.
Then, humanity will burn itself out, like so many species before you. You will exhaust your resources fighting each other instead of reaching for the stars. You will become extinct within a few hundred years, leaving nothing behind but dead worlds and broken dreams.
The portals around them began to show different scenes now. Worlds stripped bare by endless wars. Civilizations that had turned their planets into wastelands.
Species that had achieved incredible technology only to use it to destroy themselves. Marcus felt sick as he watched the parade of extinction and failure.
But, there is hope, Zara continued. There are always individuals within each species who understand what must be done.
Who can see past the immediate concerns of their time and work toward a better future.
We believe you could be one of those individuals, Marcus Chen. Me? But, I'm nobody. I don't have any power or influence. I can't change the course of human history.
Zara moved closer to him again, and Marcus felt that strange tingling sensation return.
You underestimate yourself.
Change often begins with a single person who refuses to accept the way things are.
Someone who chooses to act with wisdom instead of fear.
She reached into what appeared to be empty air and pulled out a small device that looked like a crystal wrapped in metal. It pulsed with the same blue light as the ship's walls.
This is a communication device.
It will allow you to contact us when you are ready to begin working toward humanity's acceptance into the confluence.
Marcus took the device, feeling its warm weight in his palm. What am I supposed to do with this?
That is up to you, Zara replied. We cannot force change upon a species.
It must come from within.
But, when you are ready to help your people take the next step in their evolution, we will be here. The chamber around them began to fade, and Marcus found himself standing back in the ship's main room. Zara walked with him toward the corridor that led back to his station, her movements graceful and fluid.
Will I see you again?
Marcus asked as they reached the airlock. Zara turned and looked at him with those ancient, intelligent eyes. That depends on the choices you make, Marcus Chen. And the choices your species makes in the time to come. She stepped closer to him, so close that he could feel the warmth radiating from her strange, beautiful form. For a moment, Marcus thought she was going to say something more, but instead she simply placed her hand on his chest, directly over his heart. Remember this feeling, she said softly.
Remember what it is like to not be alone in the universe.
And remember that cooperation is always stronger than competition, that wisdom is always more powerful than force. With that, she turned and walked back into her ship. Marcus watched her go, feeling as if part of himself was being torn away. The airlock sealed behind her, and, within minutes, the alien vessel was detaching from his station. Marcus rushed back to the control room and watched through the windows as Zara's ship pulled away from the station. It moved with the same impossible grace it had displayed during its approach, accelerating smoothly until it was just a point of light among the stars. Then, with a flash of blue energy, it was gone, leaving no trace that it had ever existed except for the small communication device in Marcus's hand. He stood there for a long time, staring out at the empty space where the ship had been. Had it really happened? Had he actually met an alien ambassador who claimed that humanity was at a crossroads? The device in his palm felt real enough, its warm weight and pulsing light serving as proof that his encounter had been more than just a hallucination brought on by isolation. Marcus looked down at the device, turning it over in his hands. It was beautiful in its simplicity, the crystal core surrounded by what looked like living metal. As he watched, symbols began to appear on its surface, flowing script that somehow conveyed meaning directly to his mind rather than through his eyes. The message was simple but profound: when you are ready to change the world, speak our name to the stars. Marcus sank into his chair, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what had just happened. He was no longer just a lonely mining engineer on a distant station. He was now humanity's secret contact with an advanced alien civilization, carrying knowledge that could either save or doom his species. The communication device pulsed gently in his hand, its blue light reflecting off the windows of the control room. Outside, the mining robots continued their work, unaware that the universe had just become a much larger and more complicated place. Marcus Chen sat in his chair, holding the key to humanity's future, and wondered what the hell he was supposed to do next. The weight of responsibility settled on his shoulders like a heavy cloak. Somewhere out there among the stars, Zara and her people were watching and waiting to see what choice humanity would make. And, somehow, impossibly, the first move in that cosmic game had fallen to him. Marcus looked out at the stars, seeing them with new eyes. Each point of light might harbor civilizations beyond his imagination, species that had faced the same choice that now confronted humanity. Some had chosen wisely and joined the confluence. Others had chosen poorly and faded into extinction. Which path would humanity take? And what role would Marcus Chen, mining engineer and accidental first contact specialist, play in determining the answer to that question? The communication device pulsed again, as if responding to his thoughts. Marcus closed his eyes and tried to imagine a future where humanity reached for the stars with open hands instead of clenched fists. It seemed impossible given the current state of Earth politics and corporate competition, but Zara had said that change often began with a single person. Maybe, just maybe, that person could be him. 3 weeks had passed since Zara's visit, and Marcus Chen's life had become a careful balance between routine and revolution. During the day, he maintained the mining operations, filed his reports, and pretended that nothing had changed. But, during the long nights, he studied the communication device and tried to understand the responsibility that had been placed on his shoulders. The device had revealed more of its secrets over time. When Marcus held it and focused his thoughts, it would show him images of Earth from space, highlighting areas where humanity's activities were causing the most damage to the planet. Deforestation in the Amazon, plastic pollution in the oceans, strip mining operations that left permanent scars on the landscape. It was as if the device was trying to help him understand why the confluence was concerned about humanity's development. But it also showed him positive images. Scientists working together to solve climate problems, communities coming together to help each other during disasters, young people dedicating their lives to environmental protection and social justice. The device seemed to be teaching him that humanity had the capacity for both destruction and creation, and that the choice between them was still being made every day. Marcus had tried several times to activate the communication function, speaking Zara's name to the stars as the device had instructed. Each time, he felt the crystal grow warm in his hands and saw its blue light pulse more brightly, but nothing else happened. He was beginning to wonder if he was doing something wrong when everything changed. It started with an emergency alert from Earth Command that arrived during Marcus's morning routine. The message was brief but alarming: a massive asteroid had been detected on a collision course with Earth. The impact would occur in 6 months, and, while it wouldn't end all life on the planet, it would cause global devastation and set back human civilization by decades. Marcus read the report 3 times, his hands shaking. The asteroid was too large to deflect with current human technology, and too close to Earth to mount any kind of effective defense. Evacuation plans were already being developed for the impact zone, but billions of people would still be affected by the climate changes that would follow. As he finished reading the report, Marcus felt the communication device grow warm in his pocket. He pulled it out and saw that it was glowing more brightly than ever before, its surface covered with flowing symbols that seemed to pulse with urgency. Without thinking, he held the device to his lips and whispered, "Zara of the Confluence, humanity needs help." The response was immediate. The device projected a three-dimensional image of Zara into the air above Marcus's desk, her form shimmering slightly but clearly recognizable. She looked concerned as she spoke, her musical voice filling the control room. "Marcus Chen, we are aware of the asteroid threat to your world. This is one of the tests that many species face during their development period." "Tests?" Marcus said, feeling a surge of anger. "You mean you could stop this thing from hitting Earth, but you're going to let it happen just to see what we do?" Zara's expression grew sad. "We cannot interfere directly in the natural development of a species. But we can provide guidance and assistance to those who seek it. The question is, what is humanity prepared to do to save itself?" Marcus thought about the political situation on Earth, the competing nations and corporations, the mistrust and fear that dominated most international relations. "Honestly? We'll probably spend the next 6 months arguing about whose fault it is and who should pay for the solution. By the time we actually work together, it'll be too late." "Perhaps," Zara said. "But perhaps not. You have something that many species lack during their critical tests. You have individuals who are willing to risk everything for the greater good. The question is whether those individuals can inspire others to follow their example." The holographic image of Zara stepped closer to Marcus, her dark eyes reflecting the blue light from the device. "We cannot stop the asteroid for you, Marcus Chen. But we can provide you with the knowledge and technology you need to stop it yourselves. The choice of what to do with that information is yours." Marcus felt his heart racing. "What kind of technology?" Zara gestured, and the air above the desk filled with complex diagrams and equations that somehow made perfect sense to Marcus even though he had never seen anything like them before. They showed a propulsion system based on principles he didn't recognize, capable of moving massive objects through space with incredible precision. "This is a gravity manipulation drive," Zara explained. "Your species is decades away from developing this technology on its own, but you have the mathematical and engineering knowledge necessary to build it if you have the proper guidance." Marcus studied the diagrams, his mind racing. The technology was beautiful in its simplicity, using controlled gravitational fields to push or pull objects through space. A ship equipped with such a drive could easily intercept the asteroid and nudge it into a harmless orbit around the sun. "But there's a catch, isn't there?" Marcus said, looking up from the diagrams. Zara nodded. "The construction of this drive will require unprecedented cooperation between Earth's nations and corporations. No single government or company has all the resources and expertise necessary to build it. Your species must work together or fail together." Marcus laughed bitterly. "Do you have any idea how impossible that is? The corporations would rather let the world end than share their patents. The governments would rather blame each other than admit they need help. Then, perhaps it is time for someone to show them a different way," Zara said softly. "Someone who understands that cooperation is stronger than competition." The holographic image began to fade, but Zara's voice remained clear. "We will provide you with detailed technical specifications, Marcus Chen. What you do with them is up to you. Remember, change often begins with a single person who refuses to accept the way things are." The projection disappeared, leaving Marcus alone with the communication device and a head full of revolutionary technology. He sat in silence for a long time, staring at the equations that were still floating in the air above his desk. He could download them to the station's computer, study them, maybe even build a small prototype to prove the technology worked. But then, what? He was just one man on a distant mining station. He had no political connections, no corporate backing, no way to influence the people who made decisions on Earth.
How was he supposed to convince the world's leaders to work together on a project that would require them to share their most closely guarded secrets? The answer came to him slowly, like dawn breaking over a dark landscape. He couldn't convince the world's leaders, but he might not need to. The internet had changed everything about how information spread on Earth. A single person with the right information could reach millions of people in a matter of hours. And if those millions of people demanded action from their leaders, Marcus began to plan. He would need to be careful, strategic in how he released the information. If he just posted alien technology blueprints on the internet, he would be dismissed as a crackpot or worse, arrested by whatever government claimed jurisdiction over his discovery. But if he presented the technology as a breakthrough by an unknown research team, supported by solid mathematical proofs and working prototypes, he spent the next week building his case. The station's fabrication units were primitive compared to Earth's manufacturing capabilities, but they were sufficient to create small-scale demonstrations of the gravity manipulation principles. Marcus built a tiny device that could levitate a metal ball and move it around in controlled patterns, then another that could generate measurable gravitational anomalies. While he worked, he also prepared the documentation. He translated Zara's elegant equations into human mathematical notation, created detailed engineering specifications, and wrote a comprehensive research paper explaining how the technology worked. He made it look like the work of a brilliant but reclusive research team, complete with fabricated credentials and a plausible cover story. The hardest part was deciding how to release the information. Marcus needed to reach the right people, scientists and engineers who would understand the implications of the technology and have the influence to push for its development. But he also needed to reach the general public, to build enough pressure that the world's leaders would have no choice but to act. He finally decided on a multi-pronged approach. The technical documentation would be sent anonymously to the top aerospace engineering departments at major universities around the world. The simplified explanation and videos of his prototype demonstrations would be posted simultaneously on every major social media platform and science forum he could find. Marcus spent 2 days crafting his message to the world, writing and rewriting until every word was perfect. He needed to convey the urgency of the situation without sounding like a doomsday prophet, explain the technology without getting bogged down in technical details, and inspire people to demand action without revealing his true identity or the alien origin of the knowledge. On a Tuesday morning, exactly 4 weeks after Zara's visit, Marcus Chen changed the course of human history with the click of a button. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within hours, the videos of his gravity manipulation prototypes were trending on social media. The mathematical proofs were being analyzed by physicists around the world, who confirmed that the equations were not only valid but represented a breakthrough in theoretical physics. The engineering specifications were being studied by aerospace companies, who realized they were looking at technology that could revolutionize space travel. But it was the message itself that had the most impact. Marcus had written with passion and urgency about humanity's need to come together in the face of existential threat. He had painted a vision of a future where countries and corporations worked as partners rather than competitors, where the shared challenge of saving Earth became the catalyst for a new age of human cooperation. The message went viral in a way that surprised even Marcus. People around the world began sharing it, translating it into dozens of languages, adapting it for their local contexts. Scientists held press conferences demanding that their governments investigate the new technology immediately. Environmental groups organized rallies calling for international cooperation to address the asteroid threat. Social media influencers with millions of followers endorsed the message and urged their audiences to contact their representatives. Within 72 hours, the United Nations had called an emergency session to address the asteroid crisis and evaluate the mysterious new technology that had appeared online. Marcus watched the proceedings from his mining station, hardly believing that his small action had created such a massive response. The debate was intense but surprisingly productive. The gravity of the threat had focused minds in a way that years of climate negotiations had failed to achieve. When faced with a 6-month deadline and the possibility of global catastrophe, the usual political games seemed petty and irrelevant. Dr. Sarah Kim from MIT presented her analysis of the gravity manipulation equations to the assembled delegates. "The mathematics are sound," she reported. "More than sound, they're elegant. Whoever developed this technology has solved problems that have puzzled our best physicists for decades.
Dr. Alessandro Rossi from CERN followed with his team's evaluation of the engineering specifications.
We've run computer simulations based on these plans, he announced.
A ship equipped with this drive system could intercept the asteroid and deflect it into a safe orbit.
But the construction would require resources and expertise from every major space agency on Earth.
The Chinese representative was the first to speak after the technical presentations. China is prepared to contribute our manufacturing capabilities and rare earth mineral reserves to this project, provided all nations commit to sharing the resulting technology freely. The American representative looked uncomfortable but nodded. The United States will provide our space launch infrastructure and technical expertise. But we need guarantees that this technology will not be weaponized by any nation.
One by one, the other nations made similar commitments.
Russia offered their rocket engines and orbital construction experience. The European Union pledged their advanced materials science and artificial intelligence capabilities.
Japan promised their precision manufacturing and robotic systems.
India committed their software development expertise and skilled workforce. Even the corporations began to fall in line. When faced with the possibility of global economic collapse if the asteroid impact occurred, the usual concerns about intellectual property and competitive advantage seemed less important. Boeing, Airbus, SpaceX, and dozens of other aerospace companies announced their willingness to work together on the project.
Marcus watched in amazement as his impossible dream began to take shape.
The same species that had spent centuries fighting over territory and resources was now coming together to face a common threat. It wasn't perfect, and there were still plenty of arguments about details and procedures, but the fundamental decision had been made: humanity would work together to save itself.
The construction project that emerged from those United Nations sessions was unlike anything in human history.
Called the Terran Defense Initiative, it would involve over 1 million people working in more than 50 countries. The gravity drive ship would be assembled in orbit, with components manufactured on Earth and launched using every available rocket platform. Marcus continued to monitor the project's progress from his mining station, using the communication device to occasionally send additional technical guidance through anonymous channels. Whenever the teams encountered problems or needed clarification on the alien technology, he would study the issue and provide solutions disguised as breakthrough insights from the mysterious research team. But, as the months passed, Marcus began to realize that something even more important than asteroid deflection was happening. The Terran Defense Initiative had created new relationships between nations and corporations that had never existed before. Scientists who had been competing for research grants were now collaborating on shared projects. Engineers from rival companies were working side by side to solve common problems. Young people around the world were studying science and engineering with renewed passion, inspired by the idea that they might contribute to humanity's greatest challenge. The gravity manipulation technology was just the beginning. As teams worked to build the asteroid deflection ship, they made other discoveries and innovations. New materials, new computer algorithms, new manufacturing techniques that would have applications far beyond the current crisis. The collaboration itself was generating knowledge and capabilities that no single nation or corporation could have achieved alone. 3 weeks before the asteroid was scheduled to reach Earth, the Terran Defense Initiative ship launched from orbit. Named the Unity in recognition of the unprecedented cooperation that had made it possible, the vessel was a testament to human ingenuity and determination. It accelerated toward its intercept point with the asteroid using the alien gravity drive technology, its mission watched by billions of people around the world. Marcus sat in his control room, holding the communication device as he watched the live feed from the Unity. The ship had reached the asteroid and was beginning its deflection maneuvers, using precise gravitational pulses to gradually alter the massive rock's trajectory. The process would take days to complete, but the early results were promising. As he watched humanity's greatest technological achievement unfold on his screens, Marcus felt the communication device grow warm in his hands. A moment later, Zara's holographic image appeared above his desk, her expression one of quiet satisfaction. "You have done well, Marcus Chen," she said, her musical voice filled with approval. "Your species has passed its first test." Marcus looked up from the screen showing the Unity's progress. "First test?"
You mean there will be more? Zara smiled.
There are always more challenges for a species that chooses the path of growth and cooperation. But, you have demonstrated that humanity can work together when faced with existential threats. That is the foundation upon which greater achievements can be built.
She gestured toward the screen showing the asteroid deflection mission.
This project has created new connections between your people, new institutions for cooperation, new ways of thinking about shared challenges. The asteroid was just the beginning. Now you must decide whether to maintain these partnerships or allow them to fall apart once the immediate crisis has passed. Marcus thought about the reports he had been reading about post-crisis planning. There was already talk about using the Unity's technology for other purposes, cleaning up space debris, establishing permanent bases on the Moon and Mars, even beginning humanity's expansion to other star systems.
And if we maintain the partnerships? Marcus asked.
Zara's smile widened. Then, perhaps, in time, humanity will be ready to take its place among the stars as a member of the confluence. But, that is a choice your species must make for itself, one day at a time, one project at a time. The holographic image began to fade, but Zara's final words remained clear.
We will be watching, Marcus Chen. And, when humanity is ready for the next step in its evolution, we will be here to guide the way. As the image disappeared, Marcus turned back to the screen showing the Unity's mission.
The ship had successfully completed its deflection maneuvers, and the asteroid was already beginning to curve away from its collision course with Earth. In a few hours, the all-clear signal would be broadcast to the world, and humanity would celebrate its first victory against an extinction-level threat. But Marcus knew that the real victory was not the asteroid's deflection. It was the proof that humans could work together when they chose to, that cooperation was indeed stronger than competition. The question now was whether humanity would remember that lesson when the next challenge arose. The communication device pulsed gently in his hands, its blue light reflecting off the windows of the control room. Outside, the mining robots continued their work, but Marcus could see them with new eyes now. They were no longer just machines extracting resources from a dead world. They were part of humanity's growing capability to reshape the universe, to build and create and explore on a scale that had never been possible before. Marcus Chen, mining engineer and accidental catalyst for human unity, sat in his chair watching the stars. The universe was vast and filled with wonders beyond imagination, and, for the first time in his species' history, humanity was truly ready to explore it as partners rather than competitors. The future was still unwritten, but it was bright with possibility.
5 years after the asteroid crisis, Marcus Chen stood in the observation deck of Luna Station, watching Earth rise over the lunar horizon.
The sight never failed to amaze him, the blue and white marble of his homeworld floating in the black void of space. But what amazed him more was how much had changed since that day when Zara first stepped into his life.
The Terran Defense Initiative had not disbanded after the asteroid's successful deflection.
Instead, it had evolved into something much larger and more ambitious, the United Earth Consortium, a cooperative organization that managed humanity's growing presence in space. Luna Station was just one of a dozen facilities that had been built using the gravity manipulation technology, serving as a stepping stone for missions to Mars, the asteroid belt, and beyond. Marcus had been invited to join the consortium as a special advisor, his role as the mysterious source of breakthrough technology finally revealed after years of careful investigation by Earth's intelligence agencies. The revelation had caused a sensation, but, by then, the benefits of the alien knowledge were so obvious that few people questioned the wisdom of his actions. He now served as humanity's unofficial liaison to the confluence, though contact with Zara's people remained limited and carefully controlled. The communication device had evolved too, displaying new information and capabilities as humanity demonstrated its commitment to cooperation and peaceful development. A soft chime announced an incoming message, and Marcus turned to see Dr. Elena Vesquez approaching with a tablet in her hand. As the consortium's director of xenological affairs, Elena was one of the few people who knew the full truth about humanity's contact with alien civilization. "Marcus, we've received another transmission from the Deep Space Monitoring Array," she said, her expression a mixture of excitement and concern.
"It's not from the confluence this time."
Marcus felt his heart skip a beat.
"Another alien species?" Elena nodded, handing him the tablet. The signal is coming from the direction of the Vega system, and it's clearly artificial. But the mathematical structure is completely different from anything we've seen from Zara's people. Marcus studied the data, his mind racing. The communication device had mentioned that humanity was approaching a critical juncture, but he hadn't expected it to involve contact with additional alien species. The signal pattern was complex and rhythmic, clearly designed to be recognized as intelligent in origin. "Have you tried to decode it?" Marcus asked. "Our best cryptographers are working on it, but they're making limited progress. The mathematical base seems to be different from our own, and there are patterns that don't match any known communication protocols." Marcus pulled the communication device from his pocket, feeling its familiar weight and warmth. Over the years, it had served as more than just a link to the confluence. It had become a guide for humanity's development, offering subtle hints and suggestions that help steer the species toward greater cooperation and understanding. As he held the device, its blue light began to pulse in rhythm with the alien signal displayed on Elena's tablet. The synchronization was too precise to be coincidental. "I think we need to contact Zara," Marcus said quietly. Elena nodded, understanding the implications. If the confluence's communication device was responding to this new signal, it meant that the situation was significant enough to warrant direct intervention. Marcus activated the device's communication function, speaking the ritual words that had become as familiar as his own name. "Zara of the Confluence, humanity seeks guidance." The response was immediate, but different from previous contacts. Instead of Zara's holographic image appearing in the air, the entire observation deck filled with a shimmering field of energy. When the field cleared, Zara stood before them in physical form, her starlight skin and flowing hair as beautiful as ever. "Marcus Chen," she said, her musical voice tinged with urgency. "Elena Vasquez. You have received contact from the hegemony." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. "The hegemony?" Zara's expression grew serious. "A coalition of species that chose a different path from the confluence. Where we believe in cooperation and mutual growth, they believe in dominance and control. They view the universe as a hierarchy, with the strongest species ruling over the weaker ones." Elena stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overcoming her awe at meeting an actual alien being. "Are they hostile?" "They are pragmatic," Zara replied. "They do not destroy species that might be useful to them. Instead, they offer a choice: join their hierarchy as subordinate members, or face the consequences of continued independence." Marcus felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders again. "And they're offering this choice to humanity?" Zara nodded. "Your species has progressed faster than we anticipated. The unity you achieved during the asteroid crisis, the technological advances that followed, the expansion into space, all of this has attracted the hegemony's attention. They see potential in humanity, but only as servants in their galactic empire." The communication device in Marcus's hand began to pulse more rapidly, and new images appeared in his mind. He saw vast fleets of ships moving through space, worlds stripped of their resources to fuel endless expansion, species forced to abandon their cultures and identities in service to the hegemony's vision of order. "What happens if we refuse?" Elena asked, though Marcus suspected they both already knew the answer. "The hegemony does not tolerate independent species that might one day challenge their authority," Zara said sadly. "They would begin by disrupting your expansion efforts, destroying your space stations and ships. If you continued to resist, they would eventually sterilize your homeworld and claim your territory for themselves." Marcus stared out at the Earth rising over the lunar horizon, imagining that beautiful blue world reduced to a lifeless rock. "How long do we have?" "Their diplomatic mission will arrive in your system within 6 months," Zara replied. "They will expect an answer within 1 year of first contact. After that, they will consider humanity's continued independence as an act of rebellion." Elena was frantically taking notes on her tablet, her scientific training kicking in despite the overwhelming nature of the situation. "Is there a third option? Can humanity join the confluence instead?" Zara's expression grew conflicted. "The confluence does not recruit members, Elena Vasquez. Species must earn their place through demonstrated commitment to cooperation and peaceful development over many generations.
Humanity has made remarkable progress, but you are still decades away from meeting our membership requirements. Marcus felt despair beginning to creep into his thoughts, but then he remembered something Zara had said years earlier. You mentioned that change often begins with a single person who refuses to accept the way things are.
What if humanity refused to accept either option? What if we chose to forge our own path? Zara looked at him with those ancient, intelligent eyes.
That would be the most dangerous choice of all, Marcus Chen. The hegemony has thousands of worlds under their control, technologies that make your gravity drive seem primitive, and military forces that could overwhelm your defenses without difficulty.
But it's not impossible? Marcus pressed. Nothing is impossible, Zara admitted.
But it would require humanity to achieve in months what most species take centuries to accomplish. You would need to unify not just your own planet, but your entire species across all your colonies. You would need to develop technologies and capabilities that could stand against the hegemony's might. And you would need to do it all while maintaining the cooperative spirit that brought you this far. Elena looked up from her tablet, her eyes bright with determination.
Then, that's what we'll do.
Marcus stared at her.
Elena, do you understand what you're saying? We're talking about preparing for war against an interstellar empire.
No, Elena said firmly.
We're talking about preparing to defend our right to exist as an independent species.
There's a difference. Zara smiled for the first time since her arrival, and Marcus was reminded of why he had found her so compelling during their first meeting. This is why the Confluence has faith in humanity's potential, she said. You face impossible odds and see opportunity instead of defeat. She moved to the observation deck's main window, looking out at the Earth and the growing constellation of human installations throughout the solar system.
Very well.
If humanity chooses the path of independence, the Confluence will provide what assistance we can without violating our own principles. But the choice must be freely made by your species as a whole, not just by a few individuals. Marcus felt the familiar weight of responsibility, but this time it was different. He was no longer alone in bearing the burden of humanity's future. Elena was there, and behind her stood the entire United Earth Consortium, representing billions of people who had already proven they could work together in the face of existential threats.
What kind of assistance are we talking about? Marcus asked.
Zara gestured, and the air above the observation deck filled with new technical diagrams and specifications. But these were far more advanced than the gravity drive technology she had shared years earlier. Marcus saw designs for defensive shields that could deflect energy weapons, manufacturing techniques that could produce materials stronger than anything currently available, and propulsion systems that could move ships faster than the speed of light.
These technologies represent millennia of development by dozens of species, Zara explained.
We cannot give them to you freely, as that would violate the principle that species must earn their advancement through their own efforts. But if humanity demonstrates the wisdom and unity necessary to use these tools responsibly, we can provide guidance on how to develop them yourselves.
Elena was studying the diagrams with the intensity of a scholar examining ancient texts. How long would it take to develop these technologies using our current capabilities? With the foundation you have already established?
Perhaps 50 years for the basic versions, centuries for the advanced applications, Zara replied.
But the hegemony will not wait that long.
Marcus felt the puzzle pieces beginning to fall into place in his mind. Unless we can accelerate the process somehow. The same way we accelerated our response to the asteroid crisis.
Zara nodded approvingly. Exactly.
The asteroid crisis forced humanity to cooperate and share resources in ways that had never been attempted before. The result was technological progress that would normally have taken decades, compressed into a few months. So we need another crisis, Elena said slowly. Something that would unite not just Earth, but all of humanity's colonies and settlements.
Not just unite them, Marcus added. Transform them. We need to create a civilization that's fundamentally different from what we have now.
More integrated, more cooperative, more capable of rapid adaptation and innovation. Zara stepped away from the window, her form beginning to shimmer slightly. The hegemony's arrival will provide that crisis, but by then, it may be too late to prepare adequately.
You need to begin the transformation immediately.
She looked directly at Marcus, her dark eyes reflecting the stars visible through the observation deck windows. This will be the greatest challenge your species has ever faced, Marcus Chen. It will require every human being to think beyond their own immediate interests and work toward the survival of the species as a whole. Marcus thought about the mining station where this had all begun. The loneliness and isolation he had felt before Zara's arrival changed everything. Now he stood in a space station that represented humanity's greatest technological achievement, surrounded by people who had dedicated their lives to exploring the universe and expanding human knowledge. "We'll need to tell people the truth," he said.
All of it. About the confluence, about the hegemony, about the choice we're facing. No more secrets.
Elena nodded, already composing mental drafts of the reports and press releases that would be needed. The revelation will cause panic at first, but once people understand the stakes, they'll do what humans always do when faced with an impossible challenge, Marcus finished.
They'll find a way to overcome it. Zara's form was becoming more transparent, indicating that her physical manifestation was ending. We will monitor your progress, Marcus Chen.
And, when the time comes for humanity to stand before the hegemony as equals rather than supplicants, the confluence will be proud to stand with you. As she faded away, her final words echoed in the observation deck. Remember, cooperation is always stronger than competition, and wisdom is always more powerful than force.
These truths will be your greatest weapons in the struggle to come.
Marcus and Elena stood in silence for a long moment after Zara's departure, both overwhelmed by the magnitude of what they had learned. The comfortable certainties of humanity's future had been shattered and replaced with a challenge that would test every assumption about what the species could accomplish. "Where do we start?"
Elena asked finally.
Marcus looked out at the Earth, seeing it now not just as humanity's cradle but as the heart of an emerging interstellar civilization that would soon face its greatest test.
"We start by telling everyone the truth.
Then, we start building the future that humanity deserves." He pulled out his personal communicator and began composing a message to the consortium's leadership. Within hours, the most important meeting in human history would begin, as representatives from every nation and colony gathered to hear the news that would change everything. The communication device in Marcus's pocket pulsed gently, its blue light barely visible through the fabric. Somehow, he knew that this time the device would remain active permanently, serving as a constant link to the confluence and a reminder of the choice that lay ahead. Humanity stood at the threshold of becoming something greater than it had ever been before. The path forward would be difficult and dangerous, filled with challenges that would test the species' unity and resolve. But, as Marcus looked out at the stars, he felt something he hadn't experienced since that first day when Zara stepped into his life: absolute certainty that humanity would find a way to survive and thrive. After all, they were the species that had learned to work together when faced with extinction. They were the species that had reached for the stars with open hands instead of clenched fists. And they were the species that had chosen wisdom over force, cooperation over competition, hope over fear. The hegemony would soon learn what the rest of the galaxy already knew: humanity was not a species to be underestimated or controlled. They were something new and unprecedented in the cosmic order, and they would forge their own destiny among the stars, no matter what obstacles stood in their way. Marcus Chen, mining engineer turned architect of humanity's future, stood in the observation deck of Luna Station and prepared to help his species take its next great leap into the unknown. The universe was vast and full of wonders and dangers in equal measure, but humanity was ready to face whatever challenges awaited them. They had learned the greatest lesson of all: together, there was nothing they could not accomplish.